for 2 years as a nephrologist in my hospital. So I was getting kicked out. I left because like my soul just couldn't hang out there anymore. And so during that time, even though I was kind of ostracized behind my back, everybody still respected me as a nephrologist. But I still had to go. And in that time, I started doing public appearances. Like I went on the Gary Knowles show and started doing things like that, just talking about smallpox and polio, because those were my focus. Because everyone's saying, "What about smallpox? What about polio?" And then when I started finding out, I became obsessed with it. It was so interesting. So I was morbidly fascinated by the whole thing and about how everything I found was absolutely contrary to what the mainstream dogma is. And what I had was a mountain that, pile high to the ceiling, and they had sound bites. They had nothing to fight back with me on. Nothing. So here we go. This guy named Roman Bystrianyk heard me on the radio show, and he rung my office. And after his third call, I was like, I guess I better call this guy back. And he had this idea for a book, and he had done all the charts and the graphics, and started writing the narrative around that of what the historical documents showed. And then I came in as kind of the medical person that was obsessed with polio and smallpox, and happened to know quite a bit about pertussis. So we started writing the book together, and there's probably there's got to be, if you were to take a full-time job, 20 years, at least 20 years. But for me, it was condensed, because I became obsessed after I quit my job. All I did, I basically had no money. I lived in a tent with a pop-up camper. That was my office. I was like crazy Ted Kaczynski, obsessed with polio.
Let's see where we at.
And wow. So no, I didn't have apprehension. I was like, this information. It's been so. The U.S. polio surveillance unit charts were supposed to be available in libraries. Lo and behold, every library I went to find them, I was told they're not here. There's only one library, the AMA library, and you have to have special high security clearance to look at them. Well, I won't say how, but I got a hold of them. And what those documents show is that it wasn't just Cutter Laboratories that had a problem with live polio. It wasn't just Wyeth. All the vaccine we didn't talk about this, but all the vaccine companies had a problem with live virus in their injectable vaccines during Salk's year. So 1954, 1955, up to 1959, they all were producing vaccine with live virus in it, because Salk would listen to the scientists abroad who were saying his inactivation curve was...
Yeah, the sun doesn't shine. We need bags in the morning. Everything's going in the morning.
Beginning of that, and just tracking all that down, and asking the questions that you asked. Well, where did polio go? Well, what was really causing the paralysis? Why don't we see it today? Like, I had to answer all those questions, and every question I answered, it was so satisfying that I just wanted to go on to the next question. And so there was never any hesitation, because I was so single-minded that I didn't think about the threats that could happen as a result of that. And it wasn't until after the book was out that the threats happened, and I'm still here.
5, 4 is 9, plus 3 is 12.
I figure if anybody wants to do me in now, the timing is really bad, because this is pretty much out there now.
It's been out there for a while. The Jonas Salk thing was also wild. I thought Jonas Salk was this genius that created this incredible virus that saved humanity.
Yeah, so did I. So many of our childhood fables turn out not to be true. But that was a big one, and it's still hard for a lot of people to believe. But I just think it's like anything. Like, if you're open to different information, and I always say, look, I can make mistakes. I'm not infallible. Someone has actually found a mistake in the book. I actually went in and corrected it. But that's the difference between me and these other people. If I made a mistake, I want to know about it, and I will go and make it right, and I will publicly admit that I made a mistake. But I will say that 99.9% of what's in this book is true, factual, and provable. And because I've done the research. But it's a hard thing to do. What doctor's going to quit their job? I was lucky. I didn't have kids. I didn't have, medical royalty ancestors who would have been disappointed in me. I came from nothing. I wasn't afraid to go back to nothing. And so that's why I was willing to live in a tent until this thing was done and published in 2013. So
how long did it take you?
I started working on it. Roman had been working on it for years. He had been going to libraries because his kids got hit hard by his ex-wife who jabbed them. He didn't know about it, and they got really sick. And then he started looking at old graphs and going, "Oh, that doesn't make sense." So he got obsessed in his own way with the numbers. He's a numbers guy.
Baby.
And so he'd been working on it.
Let's go buy
the two
some
of us
new
together
bags.
Worked on it probably from 2009 to
next
2013.
Set. We got 23,000.
2013, but we couldn't find a publisher. Even the alternative publishers didn't want anything to do with it, so we self-published. And then after it was successful, guess who wanted to publish our book? And I was like, nope, sorry.
What's up, officer?
We're going to carry on the way we are. Oh, but you're going to get such more credibility. It's like, unlikely.
That's funny.
We did okay.
If you give us money, you'll get credibility. Let us take a part of your successful business that you worked on for 5 years.
No problem.
We'll give you $1 a book.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
What a great
You need
deal.
baggies, baby.
And then I'll have prestige behind my name.
Yeah.
You need 80 baggage,
By a
baby.
real company. When was the last time you looked at a book and said, "Let me check who published this"?
Exactly.
You
right.
know, maybe make sure somebody recommended this
baggage.
book. but
Self-published. It's all
I
lies.
have never heard of this publisher. This is outrageous.
What's that there? Forbidden Science.
Oh, Jacques Vallée.
Okay.
Jacques Vallée is probably the most interesting UFO researcher that I've ever talked to. He's the guy that was. You remember the French scientist? You remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Did you see that movie?
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago. Do you remember there's a French
So?
scientist on the grounds coordinating with the army and explaining to everybody what's going on?
Okay.
That French scientist is modeled after this guy. This guy's been following UFOs since like the 50s or the 60s? Did you say the 50s? Like a long time. He's an older gentleman, but he's fascinating.
Okay.
And he's very rational. Like when he talks about it, it's like he is very objective in what's nonsense and what's true and what we can't explain. It's a fascinating
I know what
subject.
you see.
I think similar threads would run through his experience.
We getting big
Oh, I'm
time.
sure.
Forbidden Science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
We got
for the
15
longest
racks in the
time,
bank.
It was a ridiculed subject. Not. It didn't have the same societal impact as being a vaccine skeptic or an anti-vaxxer.
Right.
Like with that pejorative, they've done an incredible job of scaring people into just falling in line. Because if you question it and someone said, "Oh, did you know he's an anti-vaxxer?"
All right, that's
Like,
enough. That's it.
That's all you need to hear, and you're going to get this after this podcast. And I've already gotten
You're
it.
going to get it big time.
I've gotten it already.
They'll start picking apart my facts.
Let's go.
They'll want to come on and dismantle. This is what always happens. I come in first. I tell my
We
story.
went to go
and then
party,
they bring
we
in the
went to the
experts
club
who
real
are able
quick
to take, without me
for
being
a
in the
couple
room, of
hours.
course, because
Not
I
even
can't be able
for
to
like
defend
an hour.
myself. And then let the
We
public
went to
believe
club
that
for
everything
like
I
an
said was
hour,
just one big
right?
sack
It
of
was-
lies.
Well, there'll definitely be
No
the
basis,
usual
you feel me?
suspects that'll be doing that. But has anyone ever tried to sit down with you and have a conversation publicly about this? And refute it?
Not that I can recall.
No one's offered.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not that interested in doing that because I just feel like, debate it's an actual skill to be a debater. People study debate and people
Right.
get really good at it. And I'm not a debater. Like if somebody wanted to debate me in writing, I would be happy to do that because then I could sit there and take my time, go through the references that I needed rather than having to,
Right. That makes sense.
have the artillery ready, at me without having a shield. Pretty
Right,
much.
and there's an anxiety aspect to that, and there's a lot of
There it
adrenaline
is.
and emotions, and yeah, it's a skill.
But I would do it only if we had a topic that was, basically agreed upon beforehand that we could both upskill on and use what we know as that debate point. But it usually just becomes character assassination.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's super unfortunate, and it's really transparent when it's about a serious subject. Like, why do you have to attack someone's who they are, make it ridicule them, instead of just refuting the facts or laying out your case?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense that anybody who's right would do that. That's not what you do when you're right. That's what you do when you're trying to ridicule people. And you're usually trying to ridicule people because you need an edge. It's like a bully. They're like, if you see fighters, like a UFC fighter in his prime, like Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all time. If someone got in his face and tried to intimidate him, it would be kind of hilarious because he was the best fighter in the world.
Right.
So he wouldn't even have to do it back. He could just
Yeah.
smile at you. And that's sort of the same here. When you're ridiculing someone, right off the bat, a bunch of ad hominems about that person, you're trying to diminish that person to set up your argument as being superior because you're the superior intellect.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing that because you don't feel like you're on level playing field.
Yeah.
And so you want to try to do something to push them off, make fun of them in some sort of way, instead of just laying out your version of what reality is. Lay out your version if you're so strong. If you're so correct, it should be super easy to do.
Well, just like in sports, it's the same here. It's like
Bada
cheating
bing.
is for losers. If you're a winner, you don't have to cheat. And
Yeah.
And that's the same with them. Like, if their product is so wonderful that everybody needs it so badly, then why is there such what they say is that we're too stupid to understand how they're saving our lives and how they this is one of the big arguments that we really ought to touch on, is that they say that our lifespan has improved as a result of medical interventions, when what we show in here, what other scientists have shown, is that it's about 3.5% of the contribution from medicine goes into our extended lifespan, 3.5% based on antibiotics, vaccines, etc. The rest of it was all about the revolution, the health revolution, the clean water, the shelter, the electricity, the child labor laws, ending. So the magic of medicine is not what people think, and it really traps a lot of people. Like, I think there's a value to the medical field in terms of surgery and certain drugs, and if you have an organ failure, like, absolutely. But why not? Like, my Hippocratic oath said that I should consult, any consultant that will help my patient and keep the well-being of my patient stable. Well, to me, that includes, using every therapy that is as the most benign therapies possible first, the ones that work along with the blueprint of a human body, that go along with the theory of health rather than pounding down disease. You're always going to get a better result that way, assuming you've got time and you haven't waited till the last minute.
Well, you certainly will get a better result if you do get the disease that way. Like, the idea that you could just ignore everything but a medication is so silly. Right. And it doesn't. The only reason why you would do that is if that's the only way you made your money.
It is.
And that's really, especially if you're in the vaccine business and you have an enormous ad budget and you're sponsoring all the television networks.
Well, that's the big thing. And the other thing is people trust what they see on the television.
Right.
CNN was my go-to thing for the longest time. Yeah. And now I look at it and I think, oh my goodness. What cracked it for me is when they publicly villainized Andy Wakefield. And I actually knew the story behind Andy Wakefield at the time.
What was that story?
The story behind him is that he was the doctor. You'll hear he was publicly shamed. His license was removed. He published an article about what he called toxic nodular enterocolitis in children with autism. He was a gastroenterologist, a very high level, very well respected, decorated gastroenterologist, and he published this paper which remained in the journal for 12 years. And all it said at the end was further research needs to be done in order to see if there is any real
says under arrest, but I'm not under arrest, baby. We're out of here.
Toxic nodular enterocolitis. These kids suffer with horrible bowel disease. It's not just brain disease. And so after he was about to publish another paper showing that in this certain type of monkeys that were vaccinated against hepatitis B lost a lot of their reflexes and had problems. And it was on the eve of the publication of that paper that his original paper was revoked. And ever since then, he has been the poster child for vaccine nonsense, for anti-vax crazy people. And in fact, every time I've done anything, his name, funny that I brought his name up, I love him, he's a great guy, but his name would always come up. Well, you're a friend of Andy Wakefield. Or no, Andy Wakefield, because autism and vaccines has been debunked because Andy Wakefield lied, and he didn't lie. All he said is, I did biopsies, I saw this,
I almost got caught,
this is possibly a connection. And since then, other scientists have come in, done the same thing, biopsies. Then they looked at whether the vaccine virus was in that biopsy, and it wasn't a wild virus, it was the vaccine virus in that area, not the surrounding area. So there is a relationship between gut disease, MMR vaccine,
he just got to knock him out real quick,
virus that hasn't been processed properly because it didn't come into your body properly, and disease, brain disease. So that's a fact, but CNN did a hit job on Andy Wakefield, and I remember going,
yeah, we out here, dog.
Well, what's going on here? Because I know what happened with that whole situation. Now CNN is saying this, and that was kind of when the windscreen cracked for me, and I just had to start questioning anything. And then you've got the doctors that go on there. There's a couple doctors I think you interviewed.
Sanjay
Gupta. There was a guy before him.
Y'all can't stop me, dude.
Some of the stuff he said was pretty unbelievable. But that's what the public is going to hear.
Your best
chances of dealing with this is to just get the vaccine. You don't want to get shingles? Get that vaccine. Never mind the whole other truth around that, because, like you say, it's the advertising.
Y'all can't stop me, man.
Does the shingles vaccine work?
Well, what do you think about giving yourself a vaccine for something you already have?
Y'all can't stop me, baby.
If you think about it, like chicken pox is a disease that we all got as kids. You got it as a kid, probably. You're kind of superhuman.
Behind the construction site. I don't remember.
I got
it. You did, yeah. So you got it eventually. It broke you down. But I got chicken pox really bad, and then
I got chicken pox when I was a kid.
Yeah, there you go. So back in the old days, we would all get chicken pox, and then we'd be exposed to other kids that had chicken pox.
We'd go over kids' houses if they had chicken pox.
Yeah, people do. They still do that. I didn't have to. I got it somehow. I don't know how I got it. Probably from my brother. And so you have this dormant. This virus lays dormant in your body until your immune system breaks down. So. But part of it is not just your immune system breakdown, it's the fact that all these kids are now vaccinated and the circulation of the disease. See, some vaccines work in terms of they stop the circulation of the disease, but at a detriment to us. So it's been a detriment.
What are you talking
for
about?
That's
what you
wanted.
So that's not Granddaddy Perp. My bad.
It was very rare for adults.
I'm sorry.
Before the
I gave you the wrong ish. My bad. That's totally my bad.
The rate of shingles in adults and children has skyrocketed because we're no longer getting our boosters being exposed to the circulating
I should have been more attentive.
So now the solution to that is to give adults like 4 times the dose of the childhood chicken pox in an injectable vaccine against something that they already have. And so the theory is that you're going to ramp up your antibodies, and then you're going to be able to do battle if your viruses come out again. The only problem with that is that the problem is the immune system. If you get AIDS or you're on chemotherapy, your chances of that happening are really high. And does the vaccine work or not? I don't know, but I just don't think it's just, to me, just a completely strange concept to inject myself with something that I already have, along with all the other excipients and compounds that go in a vaccine that nobody wants to talk about either.
So can you explain how a vaccine is manufactured? Like, how could they not know all the different stuff that's in it?
There it is.
Like, let's talk about like how the SV40 got in there. So
he's good. He got mad cash on him.
You need something alive.
Cash real quick.
You need some sort of tissue from a living creature.
Let's get this cash.
Well, in terms of the COVID vaccine, you just need a pile of crap, actually, because it's made of E. coli cells, and that's where you find E. coli. So, with a lot of the other vaccines, you do need living. Like for tetanus, you need rotten meat.
Let's see if we can get there.
That's how the tetanus vaccine is made, with rotten meat.
You were talking about tetanus earlier, and you kind of glossed over it, but you didn't finish up. You were saying that tetanus itself. You started like Googling and like reading about tetanus itself. Yeah, a
big wake-up call with tetanus. So, what we see, if anyone's worried about tetanus, what we're shown is a picture of a soldier from like the 1800s.
I'm gonna rest my ass. You can't find me, baby girl.
Back is arched. If you just Google tetanus right now and you look for images, you'll get this
find
image.
Me.
And so that's what we're told will happen if we get tetanus. It's a sure thing. You're just going to get tetanus. You're going to die. Well, the fact of the matter is that when I started doing my deep dive in World War I, look, it was fought in the trenches with horses. That's where you get tetanus from ruminant animals.
Get off
in their
me.
gut.
Wanted that in my ass. Get off me.
Doesn't do anything until
you can't
it gets
find me.
into an area that doesn't have oxygen. So you get a cut. You get a surgeon who close you up real nice without cleaning it out properly, and you're set up for tetanus, which will transform from a spore to some kind of a microbe and start releasing a toxin that can. First starts as numbness, usually in that limb. The extreme case is in that soldier who was malnourished, stressed out, probably vaccinated for smallpox before he hit the fields, and exposed to enormous amounts of tetanus, possibly gunshot wound or a slice somewhere.
We're starting over again.
Sewn up. So his nervous system could have had a real big dose of toxin.
Fuck that
and
shit.
Nobody did anything about
you ain't on me.
That's the worst case scenario. You don't want that to happen. But in today, I've treated tetanus. Let's just put it that way. I've treated several cases of tetanus. One of the cases was a neurologically diagnosed tetanus. So tetanus is treatable. You can get on it early. Rabbit studies have shown that if you give vitamin C, if you have a good high vitamin C level before you put glass with tetanus spores on it inside the skin of a rabbit, that you can prevent the tetanus from happening. Even if you give the vitamin C at the time of the injury, you can prevent it from happening. If you give it after the event, the death rate goes down to very, very low.
Let's hit this Granddaddy Perp.
So vitamin C is a main factor, but the biggest factor is cleaning a wound and keeping the wound open if you think it's a dirty wound, and not to close it straight up, which is why nails, stepping on a nail is the classic, because rust can kind of hold the old spores inside of it. You step on the nail, you get inoculated, and then you wait for it to heal over. Well, you have to open that wound if that's going to happen.
Spot.
But tetanus has been there's a whole series of reports on instances where the cotton that was made for menstrual pads for women postpartum was impregnated with tetanus, and they got horrible cases of tetanus just from using those menstrual pads. So the hospital systems have also been responsible. The biggest thing is that being vaccinated for tetanus is not necessarily security against not getting tetanus. Now, am I telling people not to go get vaccinated or not? No, I'm not. I'm just saying there's so much, every vaccine, there's so much more to the story that should be considered. You can have different strains of tetanus, and if you're living on a field that has ruminant animals, you will be, whether you like it or not, you're going to be eating whatever's down in that field, and you're going to be inoculated and have antibody and probably cell-mediated immunity against it. So you'll already have some immunity to that. So worst case scenarios, you have no immunity, you go get a dirty wound and you don't get any real competent medical care for it. Yeah, you can end up having a problem with tetanus, whether you're not going to have lockjaw and an arched back and die. Unlikely today for that to happen.
Fuck you, coppers.
But most tetanus that happens is delayed onset. So the earlier your symptoms come on, the worse the tetanus is going to be. If it comes on later, generally, the better you're going to do. Treated with high doses of magnesium, high doses of vitamin C, local wound care. That's the best thing that you can do. Up to you if you want to go get jabbed for tetanus after you learn everything about it. Everything's on my Odyssey channel, by the way. That's where because I got canceled out of YouTube for talking about vitamin C for all things. So everything's now on Odyssey. All my videos are on Odyssey, and I do one that's just on tetanus. And again, medical reference after medical reference. I don't make this stuff up. I just report what I read. Yeah.
It's crazy that they just kick you off YouTube for reporting studies.
Yep. Yet you can have like pornography and murder and all kinds of other stuff on there. It's pretty horrifying, some of the things that flash across. Like, I wish I can't unsee that now.
Have you ever posted your stuff on X?
Yes, lots of stuff on X.
Yeah. So.
Get Smart is next.
I got canceled out of Twitter when it was Twitter, and I could not make another account. It's like they knew where I was. They were able, even when I was using different phone numbers and different emails, I could not restore an account.
You got your IP. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I used. I used VPN as well. Couldn't do it.
Really?
Then I would get an account set up, and then they would say you went against standards and cancel it. So anyway,
they must have put a cookie on your phone or something.
Maybe.
Try a new phone.
I tried a computer too.
Wow.
But I did finally get an account. I was able to open an account and get a blue check mark. But I've only got, I don't have that many followers. I mean, I went from having over 95,000 to having nothing and now rebuild. They love that. They love to let us build ourselves up and chop us down and make us rebuild and
scatter.
What
is your account? We'll help you out.
It's Dr. Suzanne H7. DrSuzanne H7. Yeah, and I don't post my opinions about different things in the world or dog and cat pictures. Like, I post stuff about vaccines. You know, I stay in lane as best as I can.
So, for you, was the COVID pandemic, was that like a big wake-up call for people to start reading your book?
We've had pretty good sales. Like Roman keeps, because he does all the accounting, and he says we just have a good amount of steady sales, and once in a while we'll see it. Like every time you mentioned the book, we had a little blip on it. During COVID, every time Bill Gates comes out and says something stupid, we have a big surge in our sales. So they actually help us when they say with their, we're gonna, if we vaccinate enough people, we can help depopulate. It's like, okay, and for whatever reason, our book sales go up.
Well, when he starts talking about vaccine deniers and vaccine skeptics, whenever they started doing that, and the language that they would use was like when the president was saying our patience is wearing thin. We've been patient with you, but our patience is wearing thin. And the White House prints this thing that if you're vaccinated, you did your job.
What up, Wyatt, Georgia?
For those unvaccinated, you're looking forward to what did they say? A winter of
a dark winter.
Yeah, of death and disease. Like what?
You know, Dark Winter was a tabletop exercise. Do you know about tabletop exercises?
I do, but what is Dark Winter?
So Dark Winter was one
you can explain tabletop exercises
that involves smallpox. Well, there are lots of them, but Johns Hopkins does. I have a whole PowerPoint on this too, but Johns Hopkins conducts a lot of them. They involve fictional scenarios where, there could be pandemics and terroristic depositions of toxins and chemicals and microbes that were manipulated in a lab, and then who in our society is going to respond and how they're going to respond, like the CDC and DARPA and the news outlets are always utmost importance is the news outlets and the messaging that goes to the news outlets.
I'm going to have to buy a new business.
But Dark Winter was one
that
was a tabletop exercise after the World Trade Center thing, when we were pointing our fingers at Iraq and weapons of mass destruction, and a Russian scientist that, had weaponized smallpox and brought it to Iraq, which they never found, by the way. But because of that, that's why I was asked to get vaccinated for smallpox in 2003, was that Dark Winter thing that was going on. Thank God there were a few people in the CDC and consultants, the old guys with integrity that knew the deal from the old days, who were saying, wait a minute, smallpox is not easily transmitted, so that's a no-no. So even if there is a terroristic smallpox drop, it's not going to be easily transmitted. It's treatable, and the vaccine doesn't necessarily prevent it.
I can't.
And so that was kind of one of the things that stalled it all out. But then they did the study on the Marines.
Part of the exercises
go must
make
do
me
tests
food.
For the new
How about
vaccine.
that?
They used the old vaccine, the dry vax. There were lots of problems with those military people. And then I was asked to sign a 63-page informed consent, basically saying that I understood all the problems that could happen to me, that I didn't have little kids in my life, that I wasn't going to be able to spread it, I would isolate after I got the vaccine. So they were ultra careful about this one because they knew they were dealing with something that could get a very bad reputation. The reason they ultimately canceled it is because any doubts whether or not must not be allowed to exist, because if we were saying, oh my gosh, we have this terrible smallpox vaccine, how did they do it back then? We have the same vaccine and people are getting really sick and dying and having cardiomyopathies. That's a problem. And so that's why the truth gets locked down over COVID. We know, look, you've seen the athletes dropping dead. You know about the cardiomyopathies, the pulmonary emboli, and all that kind of thing. Nobody's talking about the stem cells that the newborn babies are born without. Nobody's talking about the fact that there are now death doulas to deliver dead babies. That wasn't even a thing before. But I've got a friend that's a midwife who tells me that they are now creating a new field, which are midwives that only deliver dead babies. They do nothing else. They didn't need that before. COVID was an absolute nightmare in terms of obstetrics, gynecology, labor and delivery. A lot of midwives that got done and because they didn't get vaccinated, they don't even want to go back now that they can go back, because they don't want to have their good reputations of 100% of, normal births being dealing with what's being dealt with today in terms of the birth problems that are happening because of the actual vaccine itself. Because, look, if it causes problems and blood clots in our circulation, what do you think it's going to do to a placenta that is pretty much all blood vessel? That's all it is. It's like a big blood vessel sandwich is what it is.
10 racks I need, no problem.
And there was no studies that showed that it was safe to give to pregnant women, but yet they were saying that.
Well, every influenza vaccine package insert says it's never been tested for carcinogenicity or mutagenicity in pregnant women, yet it's recommended every year for every pregnant woman, and every time they get pregnant or not, it's recommended. Same with the pertussis vaccine, give it to pregnant women. Never mind that it changes the immune reactivity of the infant. Nobody talks about these things. This is what I say when, it's like the truth is so much more complicated than the soundbite lie. The soundbite lie is what gets around the world 3 times.
Yeah. Science is settled.
Science is settled. There's no debate needed, because the likes of me are so crazy and whacked out, and I'm trying to destroy the good order of the general public. Things
Blood is
like
on
that.
Your hands.
Blood. Oh, that's a good one. I always love that one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if you can pull up Rational Wiki and Humphreys. You'll enjoy this.
I want to see the image of the guy with tetanus. Did you find that?
We got a van, baby.
Can I just see one? I want to see what it looks like when you're locked up.
It's an old painting.
So can I ask you, when you've treated people that have tetanus and didn't have the tetanus shot, or did they get tetanus and they had the tetanus shot?
Well, the one that had the worst tetanus had lockjaw and had the tetanus shot. Put in painting. Whoa. Put in artwork or painting.
Look at that dead guy. But go up to that dead guy. Yeah, right there. That's not real? Does it? Not to me, bro.
It could be. But look he's clearly been in the hospital for a really long time. He probably got hospital-acquired tetanus. Okay.
Right.
Now,
but that image right there, what makes you think that that's fake?
Let's go. We in there.
That's weird. That part there looks definitely.
It does look fake. Oh, yeah, it's probably a bunch of Nazi tattoos.
But if you put in painting soldier tetanus, then it will come up.
Is that it right
there? There it is, first one right there. Very famous. That's what's on the Wikipedia page as well.
So this is...
So you don't want that to happen,
If
Joe.
you do get tetanus and there is no antibiotic...
Got a van,
this is
baby.
surely what will happen to you.
Now, today, how would you treat someone who got tetanus?
Oh, there are antibiotics, that but mostly it's supportive care until, your therapy starts to work. So some people end up, if it's not dealt to in time, you can end up ventilated. But again, it's a theoretical problem, but if you get on it in time, that's certainly not been my experience. And so the ones that I've treated that haven't been vaccinated have had the easiest, mildest cases.
But so your point is...
I don't know, I've not done a large randomized controlled study.
But what's really important here is what you're saying is that even if you get the tetanus shot, if you step on a nail, you could still get tetanus.
Look, in order to make tetanus immune globulin, which is another option, when say you have a cut and your magic tetanus shot doesn't work right away, then you can get an immune globulin injection that came from somebody who has had tetanus. Usually these are people who have actually had tetanus, not who have been back. And one of the donors that's in the literature that I use is somebody who has had natural tetanus despite having several vaccines. So no, the tetanus vaccine is not a guarantee against
severe tetanus.
Yeah.
That's right before you die. They call it severe.
Yeah.
But that could also be caused by meningitis.
So this is the kind of the dead baby equivalent of that they use for tetanus. So this was a soldier, I believe, during a very long time ago, and he was, don't even show you his wound. He's probably stepped on something. It can happen. I'm not saying it can't, but again, are parents given well-rounded information? No, they're not. They're not told that there are actually things you can do to prevent tetanus. So shouldn't they at least be told how to clean out a wound?
Right.
And not to let anybody sew it up. And secondary healing is a thing. Like some people get open heart surgery, and because they get infections, I've seen this happen. They just leave everything open and let it fill in on its own. You end up with a big scar, but they're still alive because the infection was able to heal from the inside out, or rather the wound was able to heal from the inside out. What you don't want to happen is a wound to heal from the outside, because then you're locking in dead tissue, which is a perfect setup. Tetanus loves dead tissue, which is why they use dead, rotten meat to grow the vaccine.
Oy.
Toxoid.
What is it like to have your entire view of medical history do a 180? Like, what is it like to be a practicing doctor and someone who never would have imagined this until you faced these forces
it's kind
trying
of exciting,
to get
actually,
you to
because during my medical residency, like towards the end of it, I just thought one day, I'm not a healer. I don't know how to heal anything. I'm just prolonging people's lives, treating their diseases with drugs. Like, I'm a glorified pharmaceutical technician. I realized that one day. And I was like, I'm not a surgeon. I can't do surgery. So I write prescriptions. I do diagnoses and I write prescriptions. So I decided to go into a field where people really needed prescriptions. Like, if you don't have kidney function, you're on dialysis. Like, that's one of the glories of medicine. Like, you can prolong people's lives. I really enjoyed that. But then after I left completely and started studying real physiology beyond what I learned in medicine, look, I'm learning a lot of the stuff you're learning too, the nootropics and all that stuff that you talk about. Well, I'm learning about that I love it, actually. It's exciting. I've been liberated from a prison, essentially, from a stupid prison where my brain was locked down and I was told what to do and how to do it, and then watching the results. Well, one thing if the results were good, okay? But the results aren't good. Like, we treat symptoms. We treat hypertension. Hypertension is a symptom. It's not a disease. Hypertension can come from lots of different things. That's just one case in point. So I really love being able to now have the freedom to look at the full human being and their physiology and look at them as an electromagnetic entity that has some chemicals and vitamins, and help them direct their body back towards the blueprint that it was designed upon. And that's, to me, what real healing and real medicine is about. It's not about being antibiotic, anti-this, anti-that. It's like, how about pro-life? How about we get you're going out working every day. That's great, because you know why? You're getting your blood and your lymph flowing, and you're sweating. You sweat, the aluminum comes out in your sweat. Toxic metals come out in your sweat. You create salt levels in your blood that stimulates your skin immune system, which is a separate entity. Like, I didn't know any of this when I was a conventionally practicing doctor. To even say, like, I wanted to detoxify mercury out of my patients in order to lower their blood pressure, and I was told that was not allowed. We're not. Like, well, then I don't want to do this anymore, because I know from a hair mineral analysis and from a chelation test that person is burdened with aluminum and mercury, and I know that both of those things can raise blood pressure. So why wouldn't we want to remove that? The same reason we're not allowed to say vaccines. But you know what a multi-billion-dollar industry blood pressure treatment is, and cholesterol treatment is?
Oh no!
Forget about it. Yeah, I mean, I saw malignant hypertension happen after a tetanus shot in an adult patient of mine, and so that was another one, thing that woke me up, and I was like, gosh, that's weird. And then you look up, you see there's other case reports, and then you're told
soil?
Case reports don't mean anything. You need randomized controlled studies. Yeah, so it's like there's frustration at every corner, but I love doing what I do now, and I love the fact. Look, it's all great. Like I wouldn't change anything in my life. Just put it that way. And I'm really glad I have the background of conventional medicine, but that's like background of conventional medicine is like year one in really learning about healing and life. It's the very basics, and doctors still need to keep learning. But most conventional doctors are mandated to keep learning, but they're told where they can read to get their credits every year. You can only get your credits from reading this and answering the questions like a good little doggy every year, which I still have to do. But beyond that, when I have my own spare time, like I've learned ozone therapy, I've learned how to use vitamin C, I've learned how to look at the body electromagnetically and use bioresonance, and there's just so much stuff you can do that really helps people and keeps them out of a whole bunch of trouble that they would have gotten into if they went and took allergy medicines and got their tonsils out or kept on their blood pressure medications and let the inflammation go wild in their body and didn't know anything about how to dampen. Look, most disease comes from inflammation. Cholesterol is trying to save you. It's not trying to kill you. The cholesterol is a response to inflammation. It's like your fever is trying to save your life. It's like everything in medicine is about dampening down the symptoms that are trying to save your life. So it's like I look at it and I think, I can't believe I ever actually agreed upon that.
Well, it took a lot of courage to step out of line and speak your mind, and I'm really glad you did. Because I hope more will realize that this is what a doctor's supposed to do. And you're not supposed to be a spokesperson for an industry that's pretty sociopathic, which makes some, great strides. Look, there's a lot of amazing orthopedic surgeons and eye surgeons and neurosurgeons. There's a lot of amazing work being done by medicine. But then there's also the pharmaceutical drug company, which, when attached to that and to the money people, they want to make more money every time they can. Every quarter, they want to have a bigger quarter, they want a bigger house, they want a bigger jet, and they just keep going. And the way to get money is to get you to take their stuff. It's not to heal you. The way they really make money is to convince you that you're sick.
And if that wasn't the case, we would have more medical freedom than we have, right?
Right.
Because we would have choices, we would have options, we wouldn't be told what we have to do to protect the public.
You shouldn't be shamed for getting better from some other way. That wouldn't be a thing.
I know.
That wouldn't be a thing.
Pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Well, thank you very much for doing what you do and for writing that book, because it was a real eye-opener for me. I had no idea. I had no idea the history of these things. I had no idea the correlations between when the vaccine was induced and when the death rates had already dropped down. I didn't know all that stuff until I read your book.
Who gave you the book?
I do not remember. I don't remember. Somebody recommended it.
Okay.
And
you read it.
Yeah.
Cheers to you.
Well, it's a page turner. It's I listen to it in my car too, and I listen to it in the sauna. It's one of those books that you kind of have to go over it a couple of times just to sort of digest it and go, wait a minute, but hold on. Apple cider vinegar they were using to stop people from getting smallpox? What the fuck is that? How is that real? The doctors were saying that they were treating people with smallpox and they didn't worry about getting it because they were consuming apple cider vinegar multiple times a day. And it actually worked?
That's what the reports showed. And even today, apple cider vinegar, it's had a big resurgence in terms of, keeping your gut pH nice and low so that you can digest your food better, which has downstream effects to everything, but it's also a fermented product. It's got a lot of benefits. Not just that, but even on the skin, it's really great to put on chicken pox and probably smallpox as well. But if I may just direct people to dissolvingillusions.com, because if you just go to Amazon, you're not going to, there's two different versions of the book. There's the original one that you read, and then there's the 10th anniversary version that has 200 extra pages. And we delineate early on what the new pages, what the new chapters are, so you don't have to go read the old stuff if you don't want to.
What do the new 200 pages cover?
It covers tuberculosis. It covers one of the chapters I really love. It's toxic medicine of the past. discussed all the different crazy treatments that I was telling you about. And then I added a whole bunch of the whooping cough, because more information came out after 2013, so we added that in. And then we published a second book, which is all full of doctor quotes from 200 years ago, because people say, why are you the only one? It's like, well, I'm actually not the only one. It's like, back then, this was what was recorded from doctors and public health officials, which is probably 1% of what actually was said. And then we have hard to find vaccination tragedies, Royal Commission on Vaccination, timeline, and then we have rare documents at the back. That has like the Encyclopedia Britannica, where they hired a very highly decorated, well-known, highly respected doctor to write a chapter on smallpox. And at the end, when he did what I did and basically looked at all the facts, he decimated the vaccine completely.
Oh yeah.
So that you can't really find that very easily anymore.
Motherfucking
So this one is
numbers.
called the companion book to Dissolving Illusions. And then, but if you can see all the versions, and all, we've been translated into 8 languages. We're about to be translated into Chinese. But the best resource is dissolvingillusions.com, and it will show you what your options for purchase and where you can purchase the different books. If you want to, an alternative press, we have an alternative press for those people that don't want to do Amazon. So, yeah, and all the different languages and the different versions are on there.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank
really
you for what you're
appreciate it.
doing.
My pleasure. All right. Bye, everybody.
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I wish I started at 27 because when I was 21, I was such a moron.
Right.
I just had no opinions on anything. So all my jokes were basically about sex. It was like sex and relationships.
Where were you at age 21? Boston. Okay. That's right. You were in, I was going to say, because you were at least in a good comedy scene. You could see good comedy. Yes. Yeah, you talked about that.
It was the best comedy scene. It was the best comedy scene because it was a comedy scene that had world-class comedians that the rest of the country didn't know about.
Right.
So it was a cheat code. It was like you're in a gym and you're sparring with world-class fighters, like world championship caliber fighters that the rest of the world hasn't seen yet.
Right.
And that emerges sometimes in fight gyms.
For sure.
You have a bunch of like elite fighters, and then all of a sudden there's 3 world champions in this gym like 2 years later. That's what it was like in Boston, because there was these guys that were the Steve Sweeneys and the Don Gavins who were as good as anybody that's ever done comedy. And no one knew who they were outside of Boston. And you get to see them every night just murdering.
Was their drive to get out?
No.
It was to make money, stay there.
Do coke and play golf.
Yeah.
Those guys were partying.
They probably figured. I mean, I remember the documentary about Boston comedy where they said they would pay comics and coke.
They were. It was a totally different kind of comedian. There were these big football player-looking men, who were rowdy, who partied all the time. They were all heavy drinkers. They all played golf. They were all animals, and they would go on stage and obliterate.
Right.
When I say obliterate, I mean these guys would go on stage with a drink in their hand, and they had a fucking act that was as hammered as a samurai sword. It was polished, and they would just
from the pause they would take to the eyebrow raise, all that.
Everything. And a lot of it was like local references, like local Boston stuff, and they would bury these out-of-town comedians. I saw them bury Billy Crystal one night. Bury him. Satan was nipping at his heels and dragging him down into the netherworld. It was horrible. He was in hell.
I feel like when I started comedy, drinking was still big. It was big. Now I meet all the young comics and everybody's sober or they're thinking more about all the different facets. But when I started, there wasn't YouTube yet.
Right.
Comics talk shit in the green room a lot. Terrible.
Yep.
I went and did Yuck Yucks in Vancouver recently. In the green room, there's a sign up that says, "We don't harass people in the green room." And I'm like, this is different. This is different, you know?
Well, Canada's just on another level with their wokeness.
Canada's on another level, but
come back to us, Canada.
I remember
come back
driving down the road in Vancouver, and there's all these people just lining up. And I go, "What's going on?" And said, "Oh, well, they're lining up for the bus that's about to come." And I'm like, "No, that's Canadian." I mean, like
they're so polite.
They're waiting. They know where the bus will be, and they're lining up. That is not how it works in Brooklyn.
And then before they get on the bus, they give their land acknowledgement. Before they step on the bus.
Do you think that comedy with the polish the local. I mean, it feels like comedy's taking a different turn now. Now it's if a bit is kind of working, we post it. It's up. It's not polished.
Well,
and I miss some of that. I miss some of that.
There's some of that, but there's still guys, like Louis who don't do that, and Attell doesn't do that. It's like I get for young guys coming up, it's a very good way to develop an audience. Like there's guys that have a clip, the clip goes viral on TikTok, all of a sudden they're selling out shows everywhere. Like a guy like Ralph Barboza.
Yep.
It's a funny guy.
Yep.
Gets a funny bit, it gets put up, bam, all of a sudden he's headlining all over the country, and it happened to him like that.
He was opening for me in Dallas before any of that. And, you always watch the opener. And normally I watch the opener like this. Like, this is just, is this what I have to go up after? Why didn't I bring my own guy? Whatever.
Right.
And I'm sitting in the green room and I'm going, ooh, that's a good bit. Oh, that's a fun. Oh, the crowd's going. And I'm going, this guy's got it.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, I was like watching his special, right? Or it wasn't maybe a year later. But yeah. I mean, that's a great example. He's a funny dude.
Yeah, it's a great example of what can be done with social media today. And then there's these guys.
There's a lot of bad ones.
Like from Kill Tony, where they do 1 minute. And a lot of these 1 minute clips get put into reels. And then these guys are getting huge responses for this. And now they're doing the Killers of Kill Tony, where they're selling out these huge places. So it's amazing what can be done. But
they don't have an act.
They don't. Some of them do.
Some
like Ari Maddie's 12 years in. He was doing stand-up in Australia. I actually worked with him in Australia in like 2016, I think.
Okay.
Somewhere around then. 2015, somewhere around then. So Ari's been at it for a long time. So he's really good. He's a really solid comic. So he's like headlining now because of this. And like,
right.
But there's guys that are in it 4 or 5 years and they don't really have an act yet, but they have a couple of good jokes. But they'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. But you don't want to figure all of it out on video in front of the whole world.
That's what it is now.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that as soon as I could, I posted my first set on the internet. But that was 7 years in. You couldn't even do it.
Right.
I would have done it too soon. I mean, it still was too soon. But
it's okay.
Yeah.
Look, you go back and watch my first episodes of this podcast. They were fucking terrible.
Right.
I encourage everybody to go back and watch them. They're dog shit. Nobody would watch
Where does one watch the first?
Oh, I bet they're on YouTube. They're on everywhere. Yeah. They're somewhere. It's everywhere. But like when we first started doing it, I mean, there was no production value. I was boring, and then you figure out how to do it. It's like stand-up.
It is
everything else. Go back and watch someone's first amateur fight. They look terrible. They make mistakes.
It is very beautiful to watch.
It is raining crazy.
People get better at stuff. There's a female tennis player right now named Andreeva. I forget how to pronounce her first name, but I just watched her at Indian Wells, and I saw her 4 years ago at the French Open. Everyone was saying, you want to watch Andreeva, and I'm like, this is a child that doesn't know how to play the sport. Why are we talking about her? I watched her last week, an absolute nightmare of a beast. Hitting the ball, the movement, her shape. And it was like, every day she got better and to see that was nuts. And I always go back and watch oh my God, Novak Djokovic's first Grand Slam when he's got like the worst haircut and the baggy shirt and the backhand was looking different. Now it's just amazing to see how these athletes evolve. And I'm sure it's the same for fighters. And you mentioned it was.
Sure, yeah.
I love seeing that.
Yeah, tennis is like all things, right? It's you.
Yes.
When you really do it, then you can truly appreciate people who are great.
Yes.
Like there's so many things that are like in martial arts. It's a big, like, especially when things go to the ground. A lot of times people don't understand how difficult a specific maneuver is, like how he did that, how he baited him with that, and then you have to there's certain things I watch and I'm like, oh my God, does everybody appreciate this?
Right.
That was insane.
It's a language.
It's
a language, and if you don't speak I don't speak MMA language, but that's where good commentators come in. They're excited for a reason.
Yeah.
That was something that we don't see very often, and that helps me. I assume that's how it works for tennis people or for non-tennis people when they're watching tennis.
I'm sure, but I think only a person like you, who is a professional, could appreciate the technique involved and like the changing of Djokovic's backstring.
Yeah.
All that.
I mean, I pause it. I make my wife come into the living room and I say, watch this. And she'll watch it and she'll go, that was good. And I go, are you even seeing what he did? He did a short slice to pull him in. And then he went, and it's like, but it's a language that I speak. And this is life, man. Picking these little things we have that we get passionate about is just awesome.
Yes.
And as I've gotten older, I used to shy away from tennis a little bit. It's an elite sport. It's got its own history. And now I'm just like, I fucking love it. I love that I'm good at it. I love that I know it. It's
the Wokies pushed you away from tennis?
No, the Wokies.
It sounds like it did. It sounds like it was a little too elite. It was a little too country club. A little too segregated.
It definitely is those things. No, I think what happened...
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. And that's why
it's just a sport.
Serena and Venus were such a fun fuck up to the sport.
Do you know the Freeway Ricky Ross story?
No.
Freeway Ricky Ross was a guy who, Rick Ross, the rapper?
Yes.
He named himself after a famous cocaine dealer in Los Angeles called Freeway Ricky Ross.
Okay.
Freeway Ricky Ross was selling cocaine unbeknownst to him for the CIA to fund the Contras versus the Sandinistas.
Okay, yeah, so this is the cocaine cowboy type stuff, isn't it?
Type stuff, but this was about Oliver North.
Okay.
This was all about funneling money into the war.
Yeah.
He was a tennis player, like an elite tennis player, but couldn't even read. Couldn't read.
Yes.
And was this really good tennis player who that was like what his hope for a scholarship.
Right.
Gets involved, starts selling cocaine, starts selling a lot of cocaine.
I'm sure.
Doesn't know how he's so successful because he's working with the CIA.
CIA's helping him.
Goes to jail, learns how to read when he's in jail, becomes a lawyer in jail, gets himself off because they tried him on 3 strikes, but they did it for 1 incident. So they did it incorrectly. And so he gets out of jail.
So incarceration educated him to the point where he got himself out.
But his origins are as a tennis player.
As a tennis player.
He's a tennis player, like a really good tennis player.
Menendez brothers, excellent tennis players. One of them played at UCLA.
Maybe not the best example. One guy's I'm talking about a guy from South Central LA who can't read.
True.
Just to say it's not necessarily an elite sport.
That's what you're saying.
It's just a sport.
I agree.
And all you need is a court. It seems pretty cheap. You need a flat surface, a tennis racket, and a ball. Like, let's go.
The kids that were beating me when I was a pro played on a dirt court with a rope tied between 2 sticks. These South American and Russian players, it was not a money sport. It was not a sport of money. It was a sport of movement and competition. And because there's no clock, you can have as much time as you want to figure out and beat down your opponent. So that gets a certain type of athlete. I think it was Jimmy Connors who said, "I didn't lose. I just ran out of time in that match. I would have figured it out, but unfortunately he beat me." What happened with me? I was trying to be a stand-up comic, that I was trying to so badly that I was trying to remove the athletic stigma. Even now, you sometimes say tennis and people kind of back up. But as I got better at comedy and more confident in my abilities, I said, why am I shying away from this sport that I love and that is such a foundational part of me?
Isn't that weird that you felt like you had to move away from athletics in order to fit in comedy?
That's probably a more succinct way to say it. And the new book that's out right now, Lucky Loser, is all about how I'm now embracing this tennis because it gave me all the skills to actually be good in comedy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Discipline, realizing, like the tennis player that you were talking about, that if you do put in the work over time, the results will pay off and you'll see it.
And you're alone.
Yeah.
Figure that shit out by yourself.
Yep.
You're alone and you're going to have
no teammates,
success and failure. When I was 8 years old, I lost in the finals of the Ann Arbor Junior Open. And I realized I was going to lose, and I started crying on the court. And my older brother runs on the court and holds me like a child. I'm crying. There's a picture of that in the book. Now as a parent, I'm going, who the fuck took that picture? Right? I'm just a kid crying, and my brother's holding me. Is my parents taking that picture?
They did it for the gram.
For the gram. But man, as a comic, holy shit, we've all felt like that. Yeah. Oh man, it's so personal when you fail as a comic.
Well, it's important to learn how to lose at things, everything.
Yes.
Like if you marry your high school sweetheart and you guys never broke up, and that's you probably missed out. Congratulations on achieving the most difficult thing humanly possible
together
that everybody admires, right?
Yes.
When you meet a couple, and I have 2 friends of mine that have actually been dating since they were like 16 years old, and now they're married with kids in their 40s. Congratulations. But I think there's some value in getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
I think there's some value in a girl saying, no, I don't even like you. Like, no, you don't like me? I think it's good. Getting dumped is good. I think all that's valuable. I think you have to learn. And I don't think you learn by winning all the time, and I don't think you learn if something's easy, which is why really handsome and really beautiful people are often ridiculous in the way they behave.
That's true.
Because they have 5 aces.
Right.
And, you know, and they didn't earn them. They were just born with 5 aces.
So how do you instill grit, toughness in a generation? As a parent, I see my 5-year-old struggling. I oftentimes pop in. Let me get that for you. You know, she's trying to little things, trying to do the buttons on her shirt. That's we got to, you know, and I do it for her, and I think I shouldn't do it for her. She should be struggling to do this. But this is a big issue right now, right? The younger generation, you hear that word grit. How do we instill that?
Well, sports is a great way to do it. It's a great way to do it. It doesn't work with everybody because some people play sports and they come out even cuntier. You know, they come out more aggressive or more competitive or more psychotic in their pursuits, and it just like it alienates everything else in their life.
Or it creates trauma for them. Not real, trauma, but
or real trauma.
Yeah.
Fucking head trauma if you're playing football.
Yeah.
There's. I think difficult things are important for kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be art. It could be music. It could be something. But I think there's something when you put your attention to something and realize you can get better at this thing, and you find yourself in that thing, and you find your potential in that thing that you focus on. It doesn't have to. It's not necessarily that it has to define you, because oftentimes it does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When people are really good at a thing, it becomes the whole essence of who they are as a person.
Yep.
But it's a valuable tool for elevating your human potential. And it's also a way that you can quantify effort versus results. And you can do that in sports and games and in chess and in art and things that are difficult. Like you can say, like, I am so much better at playing guitar now because I've been playing 3 hours a day for 6 months. And look what I can do now. So I know that there's a thing. And it teaches you that if there's a thing that you really love and you focus on it, that thing, if someone does it for a living, why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be in this fucking bullshit office, in this cubicle with these stupid papers that I don't give a shit about that I have to fill out for this company that I don't give a fuck about? This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Tax season is already stressful. You shouldn't have to worry about identity theft on top of everything else. And trust me, it's a big worry, especially since during tax season, your sensitive info does a lot of traveling to places you can't control. It goes through payroll, your accountant, or your tax consultant, and countless other data centers on its way to the IRS. Any of them can expose you to identity theft because they all have the info on your W-2, just the ticket for criminals to steal your identity. It's no wonder last year the IRS reported tax fraud due to identity theft went up 20%. You need LifeLock. They monitor millions of data points per second and alert you to threats you could miss. If your identity is stolen, LifeLock's U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, backed by the $1 million protection package. And restoration is guaranteed, or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Get LifeLock protection for tax season and beyond. Join now and save up to 40% your first year. Call 1-800-LifeLock and use the promo code Joe Rogan, or go to lifelock.com/Joe Rogan for 40% off. Terms apply.
I agree with you. Some things we will improve upon faster based on our natural abilities. I loved the way DJs used to seamlessly transfer one song to the other, beat matching, whatever that was called. I asked for 2 turntables for Christmas. I obsessed over it. I fucking sucked at it, dude. I couldn't do it. I tried so hard, and then I'm thinking, I pick up this tennis racket and it all kind of clicks very quickly.
Well, you have a good frame for tennis, first of all.
Thank you.
So you're tall and long, which really helps. You could reach stuff that other people can't reach.
You think you don't think I don't have a good frame for DJing?
Yeah, like you have like a foot more space. Look how much wider your arm. My arms are pretty long, and yours are like a foot more.
Dude, if Pete Sampras did this, the greatest server.
Oh yeah.
He is. Don't they say that this is the same height?
I think so.
I think they say that this is your height also.
Is that what it is?
That's your wingspan.
Well, I always heard that from here to here is your foot. I saw that on Pretty Woman. From here to here is your foot.
But I mean, Pete had like extra length.
Yes.
And people go, how did he get the pop on the serve? It's like, those
torque. Like Tommy Hearns with his punches.
Yeah.
Tommy Hearns was so long and tall. Like Deontay Wilder's another example.
Okay.
Those long, tall guys when you have this torque. Like, you ever see Deontay Wilder?
No.
He's arguably the greatest one-punch knockout artist in the history of the heavyweight division. At one point in time, he was like, what is Deontay's record? I think it's like 40, and he's had a few losses recently, but at one point in time, he had like 39 knockouts out of 40 fights.
Jesus.
Which is insane.
And these are professional fighters he's knocking out. It's not
and he's
me.
undersized for the heavyweight division. When he fought Tyson Fury was like 260. He was 209. 209.
He made it to 40-0.
40-0, and 39 of those 40 were knockouts. Look at everybody. Knockout, TKO, KO. He knocked out everybody. And get the Luis Ortiz fight. Show him the Luis Ortiz fight.
Forgive this extremely ignorant question. When you say knockout, that means like
flatline.
The guy's done. That's not like the ref calls it.
TKO is the ref calls it. Knockout is like it's over. Like, you got flatline.
And these are guys that know how to take hits.
Elite guys.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, Luis Ortiz, was on the Cuban Olympic team. He's a fucking elite fighter, and he was really durable. And Deontay he's the one with his back to us. He's long and tall, but he's not giant. He's not a big guy in comparison to a lot of these guys. But he catches him with a right hand and flattens him. I think this is the first time they fought, Jamie. Yeah, the second one is the KO with one punch. So he beat him up in the first fight too, but Ortiz is an elite boxer, and Deontay's not the best boxer.
Right.
He's just a hitter.
Got a hitter.
And he's just waiting, blam!
Yeah.
And he hits guys, and they're like, what the fuck? Here it is. Watch this.
Wow, that
just collapses.
It didn't even seem like it was that hard of a hit.
And this is an elite heavyweight.
Yeah.
Show it again, because it's so crazy. It's just one punch. It's just black. See, Wilder just waits. It's all waiting. It's not boxing.
Yeah, it's right.
He's just waiting for his chance.
Look at that record.
Right here.
Unbelievable.
Well, you got that kind of power. That is so crazy.
That's crazy. It's hard for me to even wrap my head around.
See if they show it in the replay, because he hits him on the forehead, which is so crazy. Just before that. Watch this.
Right there.
Just before it, Jamie. Okay, here it is. Watch this. He hits him on the forehead, man.
Not punching.
So
waiting,
he's just waiting. He's just waiting. He's just pawing at him with his left hand, and
bang! Oh my God! Look at that,
bro. But it's all that torque and length and leverage and just God-given power like nobody has.
Jeez, and the fucking slow motion.
That is so crazy.
The slow motion camera.
That is so crazy. And look at the torque. Look at the wide shoulders and the timing and the speed. And watch, it just straightens out right on his fucking noggin. Boom!
You know, in these...
And the follow-through with the shoulder. Oh, my goodness.
In these sports, like mixed martial arts too, these sports aren't for me because one punch, it's done.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning, I like watching that. Meaning, I wouldn't have been a good athlete in that sport.
Why do you think that?
Well, like in tennis, what I love is if you're just bombing aces, after the first set, clean slate. We start all over again. And in boxing, you make one mistake like that, and it's done.
Well, against that guy. But that's very unusual. Most guys can't do that.
They can't do that.
Most guys can hit you pretty hard.
You would take a hard hit, but you could recover.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Deontay's like in a world of his own. And he's also in a world of his own, again, because he's not big. Like, there's Daniel Dubois, who is he's... I forget which division he's a champion of right now, but he's a giant heavyweight who knocks everybody out. But he's 255, 260, built like a tank. Deontay's literally 40-plus pounds lighter than that. Crazy. And just one punch. Blah!
I liked how we watched a lot of that, and he hadn't even thrown a punch. He's not wasting. He's a hitter. He's
a hitter.
He's there to kill you.
He's not going to outbox you and be slick. In fact, his movement is sometimes awkward.
Yeah.
He's criticized for having bad footwork. His legs look like sticks.
Yeah.
He has the skinniest legs you've ever seen in your life. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you look at his legs, you're like, how?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
But the power this guy generates is out of this world.
So his software during a fight is just constantly trying to find the open for one of these huge punches. That's the whole time he's doing.
He's not boxing you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's boxing kind of, but he's really looking for the big one. And you know if that big one lands, it's nighty-night for everybody.
That's
the only body who's able to survive it is Tyson Fury because he's a fucking animal.
Right.
And he rose from the dead in the 12th round of their fight where it looked like Deontay had knocked him out cold. Deontay even went like that at the end of it because he hit him with a right hand and then a left hook as he was going down. And he went flat out on his back, and Tyson Fury rose like the Undertaker and got right back and won the rest of the round. But that's just because that's another very, very rare human being, Tyson Fury, just an animal. Just an animal. One of the greatest boxers of all time. And one of the greatest heavyweights, without a doubt, of all time.
When you get hit like that, there's got to be an enormous physical pain, But then there also is like, don't you get scared then after a big hit like
you get super confused.
You get confused. Because I would get scared.
You got to kind of shake off the cobwebs. Your ears are ringing. Your legs don't work right anymore. When you get knocked down, I only got TKO'd once in a kickboxing fight, and ironically, it didn't hurt. The punch that hit me just twisted my jaw. He hit me with a left hook, and my legs just gave out, like weep, like gone. It's the craziest feeling. It's like it's not like you got hurt. It's like your legs just shut off.
Right.
Like he clipped me with a left hook that I didn't see in an exchange.
I'll be right back.
And when you get hit on the jaw, something happens in the jaw, and I don't know what it is with the nerves behind your neck, but it just shuts everything off.
Right.
And you're conscious, which is weird. Like, so it was completely conscious, but my legs just disconnected and went down, but they reconnected right away, and I got up and I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Like, they weren't working good. Like, everything wasn't working good. And then I got dropped again. He hit me with an uppercut and dropped me, and then the referee stopped the fight. But totally conscious the whole time. But the feeling that you get when you get hit real hard is real weird. It's like nothing works right anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to get on your bike and try to move around and get everything working again. And it might take 30 seconds.
And that's that 30 seconds when he's also.
Bro, what the fuck?
Get everything working again, and it might take 30 seconds.
And that's not 30 seconds when he's also trained to kill you. Now, in the UFC, it's way more accurate because when you get knocked down, they climb on top of you, even for that brain touch.
fucking shit. I'm out of here.